Welcome to Boomhauer 69's channel, and today Boomhauer is going to talk about, I don't want to say it's a forgotten thing, but nobody hardly uses them much, but this is an electronic device that I think is perfect to have in your prepper room if you're a doomsday prepper or off-grid prepper, or if you're just somebody like me who likes to once in a while listen to it and stuff, but I'm going to talk about CB radios and why I think they would be important to have in your doomsday prepper room if you're an off-grid prepper. Now, I'm getting a little bit into that bushcrafting, survival, off-grid stuff, and that's one of the topics I really enjoy researching on YouTube and stuff here, and I wanted to give my thoughts on how CB radios would play into that factor of an a doomsday prepper, if you're into being a doomsday prepper and how this would be handy. This here is a real estate made by Radio Shack Corporation for those of you people who are into vintage electronics. This is a CB radio. CB is short for Citizens Band. That's the frequency. Citizens Band meaning anybody with a radio or analog scanner can hear what's being said on it. But this is what they call a citizens band radio, and they call these citizens band because this is what your average citizen back in the day used to use before cell phones came about. Now, this is a CB radio made by the Radio Shack Corporation. And what's good about these for like that prepper doomsday situation, is I've been watching the news and hearing all about what's going on in Ukraine and everything going on, and a little bit talks of World War III coming and stuff, and I always think about, what are people going to do when, like, your telephones, your cell phones, your landline phones, your cell phones, your computers and internet and all that stuff goes down and you can't, communicate. How are you going to communicate with people? Obviously your local post office, they won't be able to send out letters and mail and stuff, so that's something to think about, and that's what brings me to this. I'm no professional CB radio guy or electronics person. I'm no professional doomsday prepper. There's better people out there that know more than I do. I'm just a beginner learner like everyone else, and I know how basically CB works, because my father was born in 1957. He was part of the CB craze, and he taught me how to use CBs, and so yeah. And my thoughts on CBs and why they would be good for a doomsday prepper situation, is as long as you got one of these and a microphone. You gotta have a microphone that works with the radio. Usually when you buy a CB radio, they'll come standard with a basic microphone like this. This is your basic standard microphone. And as long as you got one of these and an antenna, like here, this is the antenna. It's got a magnet on the bottom where you just go like this and you can set it on anything magnetic and it won't move around. They designed that this way. This antenna is designed to go on the roof of a car or something, because this is a mobile version of a CB radio citizens band. This is what they used to use back in the days in cars, and truck drivers used them in semis, but back when nobody had cell phones, this is what everybody had in their car, and this basic antenna, and it's a wobbly antenna. And this antenna works just like any other antenna for your TV, whatever, it's just an antenna that picks up a signal. So basically when you got this on and you select your channel, this antenna will allow you to pick up other talkers on the radio. And this just works like a standard voice chat room, like you get on the computers back in the day, like back when Yahoo used to have chat rooms and they used to have voice chatting, where you could talk one at a time kind of thing. So, and what this is here's all the controls. This is your power. This shows you that it's on. This right here where my finger is rubbing, That's the screen that shows you what channel you're on. There's your what do they call that? Mod. That's just a little light. I don't know. Can't remember what mod is for, but and there's your bars. That will show you how strong the person's coming in that's talking to you. Now, how CBs work is they have multiple channels. This is a 40 channel. Way years ago, they used to have what they call 23 channels, and 23 channel CBs got kind of boring, so a group of people convinced the FCC to make 40 channels, and this is a newer 40 channel. Nowadays, for Citizens Band Radio, 40 channels is the standard. So you have 40 channels to select from, and it's basically like chat rooms. Is the way for people who don't know CBs. Basically, channels are like chat rooms, and you just select. They go from 1 to 40, and so you would turn this on right here. This has the volume and on and off switch on the same knob, and you would turn it. You'd hear a click, and you turn it on. It would light up your channels to show what channel you're currently on, and your volumes just to adjust. And on the bottom, here's a speaker. This is your speaker right here, where you listen to people talk. This is the speaker. And then on the sides here, on the back here, this is your for external speakers and PA speaker. PA speaker just allows you to, as a speaker you can hook up, where on the front here you'll notice it says CB and PA, and switch that to PA. That just allows you to talk through a speaker like any standard microphone speaker setup like you'd have at a stage or concert or on your computer when you're recording your voice or whatever, That just allows you to talk through a speaker. So let's say you have this set up in your house or in your car, and on the outside you'd have a speaker where you could click on it and go to your neighbor, hey, how are you? Or go, hey there, you walking, or whatever. But that's what that allows you to do. And then CB allows you to talk over the channels when you have that in CB mode. And on the back here, and then external speaker, again, it's just, this is a built-in speaker, but an external speaker just makes it a little more easier for you to plug in and listen to what the radio is saying. And then over here is, of course, your antenna. This is where you would screw this in. Let me show you here. I got the end. This is what your antenna, all your CB, Citizen Band radios, and even amateur ham radios have. And what you do is you just slide this in the hole. See this little thing poking out there? This where I got my finger. You slide this on, and you just go and you slide it in the hole, and then you screw this on like you do a nut and bolt. It's just like a nut and bolt. It's got threads, and you screw it on, lefty loosey, righty tighty, and you tighten that down. And then when you got this radio on, this antenna, if you have it in a good spot, will help you pick up people you're talking to and stuff. And then to talk to somebody, you of course got to have the microphone that comes, a microphone. They also make external fancy microphones, or like this one, you can just use the standard microphone that comes with it. Every CB radio comes with a standard microphone, and on the back here they'll have a hardwired in wiring, so you can hardwire this up to a battery, or you can wire up like I got here, a DC plug to plug this in your cigarette lighter. This is considered a mobile CB radio, and so that's why it's wired to be hooked up to to be plugged into a cigarette lighter in a car, truck, semi, any sort of vehicle that has a DC cigarette lighter plug. They call this a mobile radio. Now they do make a CB radio called a base Citizens Band radio, a base CB, which base CBs are meant to be used in your home, and they would have this sort of plug-in. I don't currently have around me a base CB because I don't own one right now. But base CBs would just have a standard household AC current plug, and then you would just plug into regular wall outlet and then screw your antenna on to listen. Why do I think these are good for off-grid prepping, survivalists, doomsday preppers, what the hey is? Because there's going to be people saying that amateur ham radios are nice, but those you need a license for. These you do not need a license for. And that's what I like about these is you don't need a license. You can go to any truck stop out there and get these cheap. You can get these a dime a dozen for around $100. You can get a basic CB radio. And the reason why I say that is because I think these are going to be more common. And as long as you got a way to power this, like you can hook this up to a solar panel, batteries, and communicate with people. And the reason why these are so important for when some people call it the shift, or when World War III breaks out, or the grid goes down where your cell phones won't work, your internet and all your internet computers and mobile devices won't work, and you need to communicate, and you can't, send a letter to the post office because the post office is down. This would be a good way to communicate with other people. Well, and it's going to be more, you're going to have more of a chance to finding one of these around and stuff, and more people with these versus like a ham or amateur radio, because you need licensing for amateur ham radios, and stuff. So, and with CB radios, there's going to be more people, so you can relay messages to and stuff. And the way CBs work is all you need is the radio itself, a microphone, whether it's a aftermarket one that will work with your radio, a fancy microphone, or the basic one that comes standard with your radio. Because again, when you buy a CB brand new at a truck stop or electronics store, wherever, or Amazon or Walmart or whatever, they'll always come with the radio, a standard basic microphone like this, and then they'll come with wiring, because they'll have some hard wires here to allow you to wire it directly somehow into your car, if you know how to do that, or like I got here, wire up to a DC plug to allow you to plug into a cigarette DC plug, or some other source, or you can just wire this up directly to a battery if you know how to safely do so. And that's all you need is just this antenna. And then as long as your neighbors, let's say you got neighbors maybe 5-10 miles away, if you can pick them up on this, if your CB and setup is strong enough, and your next door neighbor has one, you two can talk back and forth to each other, or you can usually these, a standard stock CB radio is going to have, I think it was around maybe like 10 miles range or whatever. So if you, let's say you live out in the country and your neighbor's about 3 or 4 miles away, you'll be able to pick them up and talk to them and say, hey, are you all right? What's going on? Blah, blah, blah. As long as you're on the same channel, Because that's how CBs work. They work on these channels. Channels are like chat rooms, and you just select whatever channel, and then you can click on the microphone here. There's a button on the side here. You click that, and then you start talking and say, hey, can anybody hear me? Come on back or whatever, and then you let go of the microphone button, and then the other person, if they hear you, they want to, they can pick it up and say, yeah, I hear you, what you need, or whatever, and then you can start talking to each other. But it's like a one-on-one thing where if you're talking at the same time and he's talking at the same time, you're not going to be able to hear each other. So keep that in mind, but that's why I say CBs are going to be handy in that doomsday situation, because all you need, again, is the microphone, the antenna, and as long as your neighbor's got a microphone, radio, antenna, has the antenna, a microphone, and a radio, you'll both be able to talk back and forth to each other, as long as you have a way to generate some power, which these use DC current. So, and now base radios, they use household AC current. So as long as you have a way to power one of these, you can talk to a bunch of people. And these are more common because they sell them at every truck stop for truckers, and I highly suggest for a backup communication system, get you one of these. Now this one here I have doesn't work right. The microphone is goofy. I think the microphone has a short in it, so I'll have to get it. But I plan on doing some research and getting a newer radio and not messing with it. These are just some old. I have a few old ones I got at a garage sale that I mess with from time to time. But I do plan on getting a brand new one and not opening it and keeping it in my doomsday area. So when the grid goes down and I can't communicate through my landline telephone, because I use landline telephones, or if my cell phone doesn't work, I can, get on here and communicate with people if I need be. Now, this right here is where you, again, shows you what channel you're on. And again, as long as you and your neighbor are both on the same channel, you'll be able to both talk to each other. And how this works is when you're not talking, when you don't have the microphone button pressed in and it's not pressed, see, that means you're on, you're ready to talk. That means it's not talking. So you have to, in order to talk on one of these, you always got to make sure to have this button pressed in so people can hear you. Because if you don't, and you start talking on it and you don't have this button pressed, nobody's going to hear what you say. You'll know because you'll be able to hear. When you got the microphone button, talk button, pressed in, the call button, as some CBers call it, the call button pressed in, you won't hear anything through the microphone speaker. The CB will go quiet. This bar right here will light up full bars, and then you start talking. Then when you let off, then you'll get your static and start hearing people talk again. This tells you kind of roughly how close somebody is or how powerful somebody is. And yes, they make amplifiers and all kinds of things to boost your signal strength of the radio so you can talk farther away, and that's why I think these are important, because let's say you're in an area where you can pick up people and stuff, and you got a buddy that lives kind of far away. You can hurry up and get on here in a emergency situation, whether it's hurricane storms, whatever the case may be, and as long as you two both got your antennas up, you can talk to each other and say, hey, are you okay? What's going on? Can you hear me? And as long as somebody out there, your neighbor or whatever's got his radio on and you're both on the same channel, you can talk to people. And this right here is the power. And again, all this does is just tells you how far away somebody is, gives you a rough idea of how close the person is sometimes and how clear they're coming in, and that's why they have numbers on here: 1, 2, 3, and 5. 5 is good, 1 is weak, and strongest is number 5. So if you're talking to somebody and it's on number 1, your little lights up the little number 1 area, then that means they got a weak signal. So that means you might lose connection. And again, this is a 40 channel radio, so it goes from 1 to 40, and basically the channels are like chat rooms where you just go to any channel and then you key up on the microphone and say, hey, can anybody hear me? Come on back. And if they want to, they'll say, yeah, I hear you loud and clear, or whatever the case may be and stuff. But yeah, that's why I think it's important today to still have a CB radio. They're kind of not used as much anymore. They're still out there, and they're still now kind of just hobbyists, people that are interested in radios and stuff. And again, I think these are going to be more easier versus ham radios, because ham radios and amateur radios, they call it, you got to have a license. The last time I knew, you got to have a ham amateur radio license, and those are way more powerful than a CB radio. They work in the same way, but they're more stronger and powerful and stuff. And to me, getting parts and stuff for an amateur ham radio, I think it's going to be a lot more harder versus a CB, because again, every truck stop you go to, they're going to have, stuff to run a basic CB like this. Back in the day, Radio Shack used to sell this CB. I got a Cobra CB that was back in the day sold in truck stops and stuff. There's different brands of radios out there. You can get these a dime a dozen at any truck stop. Nowadays, you can get what they call Uniden. There's a company called Uniden that makes CBs. Cobra, like the snake. There's a company called Cobra that makes radios, and there's a ton out there. And again, you can get these pretty cheap for around $100, or even sometimes around $50. You can get a basic small little setup, and they don't take a whole lot to power. They're just DC power. So, and this right here is, if you don't know what that is, that's just a fuse. That's for if something happens. The fuse will break the connection and works like any fuse circuit breaker out there. That's just where your fuse goes, and you have a fuse in there on your positive. Black is your ground, and red is your live positive. And so in a doomsday situation, if you have a shoulder set up like those Jackeries, they all have DC cigarette lighter plugs. You can plug one of these bad boys in there and set this antenna up somewhere to pick up signal and be able to talk to people and stuff. And that's what I think is important. And these citizens band radios, or more commonly known as CB radios, which is CB again is short for Citizens Band Radio. These you do not need a license for, as long as you don't modify them and you're compliant with FCC's rules and regulations on CBs, which you can Google that and stuff. Basically, if you don't do a whole bunch of fancy modifications to the radio and just keep it stock, you'll be fine. And that's why I think these are important to have in your doomsday survival. Some sort of radio, whether it's amateur radios, those little two-way radios, that they used to have real popular for a short while. But yeah, I say just get you a basic CB radio. This is a basic antenna. You'll find these all over the place in truck shops. I had an uncle that had a base CB, and he had a big old tower antenna. Big old, that went in the ground, a big old tall, like 55-foot tower antenna or something like that. Big tall antenna. And this is just a basic antenna that they created for CB's. Matter of fact, it's Cobra brand. And what you do is, I ain't got nothing metal here, but what you do is, this back in the day, when everybody used CBs in their cars and semis, you would just simply mount this on the roof of your car, and then run the cable through a window or somehow into your car, and then you would screw it on the back of your radio, on the antenna slot, screw it in, and then you would be able to, and then once you did that, you turn the radio on, and then you could talk to people and stuff. And that's why I think it's important, because that's all you need. Again, that's all you need is just a microphone, the radio, and an antenna. And as long as your neighbor or somebody out there close to you has a radio, you can talk back and forth and relay messages, and stuff. And so that's why I think they're important, as long as you got a way to power them. Basically, these take less technology to run versus cell phones, landlines, computers, and internet. They're going to take less communications. So if you need to relay a message, let's say like I wanted to the next town over, which is 10 miles from me, I could probably, if I set up my antenna just right, in the right spot in my yard, I could be able to probably pick up somebody in the next town over and say, hey, I know so-and-so, can you relay a message to them? And I'll be able to get a message out to them in a emergency situation and survival situation, where let's say there's a big storm comes and knocks everything out, and the postal service can't give out mail or deliver mail because of the big old storm and everything. As long as I got one of these, I could probably get on here and say, hey, anybody over in the next town over? And they might say, yeah, can you somehow get a message over to this person to let them know that I'm okay? And they might be able to do that. They might say, yeah, sure, I can do that. Where do they live and stuff, and relay messages. Now, with CBs, the thing is with these, as long as everyone in your area that has a CB radio, if they're on the same channel that you are on, they're going to be able to hear your message. So keep that in mind. If you're trying to send like a private message to somebody, you won't be able to do it over a radio, because then everybody will hear it. So basically, if you're a criminal trying to commit a crime and you're telling people over the radio, talking to your buddy that has one and you're trying to commit a crime or something, everyone out there is going to hear what you're going. So that's why they call it Citizens Band Radio, is because citizen stands for public. That means it's just like a chat room, anybody with a radio, and if they're on the same channel you're on, everyone out there with a radio in range that can hear you will be able to hear what your message is saying, what you're saying to other people as well. So keep that in mind when you're on these, There's no way to private fit what they call instant message. You can't send direct message, can't private message anyone on a CB radio. All you can do is talk to somebody, and everyone with a radio can hear what you're saying. So keep that in mind. But yeah, that's important, because when you're in a survival situation or doomsday situation, you gotta relay a message to somebody. This is going to be your best friend. So if you, let's say, you live in one town and the next town over is 10 miles away, and you have family member in the next town over, for, let's say, they don't have a radio, but somebody close to them that does have a CB radio, and you're both on the same channel, you can say, hey, can you check up on my elderly family member for me, please? I can't get there fast enough or stuff, This is going to be a lot quicker than trying to walk 10 miles to relay your message to somebody, And I think it's important to have one of these for backup communication, whether it's those two-way radios that they used to have, I used to have some little made by Cobra, the same brand that made this antenna, some funny little two-way radios, or amateur radio, definitely, but again, two-way radios, you can find them anywhere, so I suggest, get one of those also and give one to a friend or whatever the case may be and stuff, but yeah. But the reason why I say CBs, to me, would be the more of the better thing, is because they're going to be more common to find parts and stuff for radios than versus, amateur radios. And since amateur ham radios you have to have a license for, there's not going to be many people that are going to be able to send an amateur radio up and use one. And CB radios, there's nothing to them to work them. They're just real easy. All you do is just turn this knob here to turn it on and adjust your volume, and then select your channel. And it's pretty basic to figure out how to work, Anybody can work them. They're a lot more easier to work than versus like trying to set up a ham radio. Because back in the day, ham radios had all these different little amplifiers and all this other stuff you had to have on it in order for it to work and get more signal strength. And CBs, all you gotta do is just right here on the side, your CB radio will have an outlet here. It'll have a little outlet where you plug in your microphone, and all you do is you just simply plug in your microphone, plug the radio into your power source, your battery, solar setup, whatever your jackery or whatever you're gonna power this thing with, and then all you gotta do is screw your antenna like this. Screw the antenna on there, lefty loosey, righty tighty. Screw your antenna on, and then once you got your antenna screwed on, plugged in, then you just simply turn the radio on, adjust your volume, and then you just simply turn the knob to whatever channel you want to talk on. Now on this radio, it has a line it, and then the squelch. Squelch is just to kind of adjust the static and try to clear up your friend talking. Usually if you're real close, your friend talking. I never use squelch much, and I'm not too familiar with how squelch works on a radio, or the actual scientific how squelch is, what really squelch is. All I know is basically it's to help kind of tune in somebody, you adjust your squelch to try to better listen to the person you're talking to, to help eliminate a lot of static, because when you're talking to somebody on a CB or listening to a CB, you get a lot of staticky noise in the background and stuff, so squelch just kind of helps try to eliminate some of that and make it clearer so you can hear the person. And then Same thing with this one alignment, NALN. I forget what that abbreviation is, but I just keep that off. And I just keep the squelch way down so I can listen to all the static and stuff. I forget properly how squelch properly works, SCB. But yeah, you just turn this knob here to whatever channel you want. You can call it station, whatever, it's chat room. Because that's all this channel button is. They call them channels on CBs, and you have 40 channels, 1 through 40, and they're like a chat room. You just select whatever channel, and then you simply hit the button on the side of your microphone and say, hey, anybody can hear me, and you can pick up all the people you want, because that's important. Again, these are real easy to work. They make so many different models out there, from complicated ones to real basic ones. This is a basic, and you'll be able to get them a dime a dozen anywhere. Every truck stop sells them, because a lot of truckers still use them. Some don't, some do, but that's how I think CBs are going to be irrelevant, because they're going to be good for that emergency situation when all other sources of communication are down and you have no other way to communicate. Having one of these and people, having one, as long as you got one and your neighbor or your friends or whoever's got one and they're not too far from you, you'll be able to pick up and talk to them. And so that's why I think CB radios are still a good thing to have around, and suggest you have one in your doomsday prepper room if you're a prepper, or even if or it's just somebody that wants a little bit of stuff for a case of emergency. Have one of these and you'll be just fine and stuff. So you can, if a storm knocks out all other communications, or World War III breaks out in your area, or whatever, Civil War, whatever the case may be, and all your other communications are down, you'll be able to relay messages back and forth to people and stuff. Like if you know somebody in the next town over that's like 10 miles from you. Like I live in a town where the nearest big towns next to me are 10 miles away, and I'll be able to on this try to pick up somebody, say, hey, anybody can hear me, and relay messages back to forth. Can you deliver a message to someone, let them know, hey, I'm okay, or whatever case may be. Yeah. So that's basically my thoughts on how I think CBs, citizens band radios, would play into, a emergency survival situation, whatever you like to call it. So yeah, if you like more of these videos, I know this is a long kind of ramble video, but yeah, if you like these sort of content, subscribe to my channel, because I'll be doing more of this sort of content, and I have other content on my channel as well, so check out that stuff as well. And I hope you all have a good day, and thank you for taking the time to watch my videos and subscribe to my channel. And I definitely appreciate it from the bottom of my heart, and just want to say thank you, and hope you all have a good day.